Hello everybody, my name is Tom Burns and welcome to the stream. I hope you're all doing okay. Let me just turn that down. It is episode 4 of What's the News. Apologies between um, the gap between episode 3 and 4. Of course, episode 3 was the general election special, so that's how long ago that our last episode was. But we both just got very busy around, obviously with Christmas and stuff like that, and then we wanted to do an episode between Christmas and New Year to sort of wrap up the year, but we didn't get a chance to do that either. So we're sort of going to do the wrap up of the year podcast today. We're going to talk about 2024 and a lot of the points, key points of 2024, the big stuff that's happened in 2024. We're also going to talk about a couple of things that have already happened in this year as well. So an exciting podcast ahead. But as always, my co-host for the stream today, sorry. As always, my co-host for the sorry, I can't speak today. As always, my co-host for the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Wigglytuff.
Thank you, Tom, and a wiggly wiggly to you, and a wiggly wiggly and a good evening to all of you wherever you're tuning in from. And although the year is already nearly 6, 7, 8 days old, a very happy New Year to you all. Hope you had a good Christmas and a good Hanukkah and a good festive season. Yes, what a year 2024 was in so many ways, and 2025 is shaping up to be, just as turbulent, even though we're barely into it. But yeah, lots to look forward to, whether in the wrestling sense or in the general sense. I'm sure we'll discuss that, but for now, I'll hand you back to my host, Tom.
Okay, thank you very much. So, like I said, today we're going to talk about a lot of what's happened in 2024. But I think before we get into the 2024 stuff, let's just talk about a few things that have happened so far this year. Mainly in the wrestling world. Obviously, me and my co-host are massive wrestling fans, mainly WWE. But I know my co-host also watches AEW from time to time as well. I do not. Um, but yeah, mainly it's WWE, and I think if we're talking about key points of 2025 already, what's happened, I think you cannot talk about wrestling and WWE without talking about the first ever episode of Raw on Netflix. A historical event, for the first time around the world, or at least most of the world. WWE was shown on Netflix and not on cable TV. And I think in some places it was still being shown on cable TV, but for the most part it was on Netflix. And what a show it was. There was many different key points to talk about on the show. One that I'm sure me and my co-hosts are going to love to talk about. But yeah, I mean, it was a great show. It kicked off with the tribal combat. Roman Reigns ended up winning in what was an amazing amazing match. It was just cinema. That match, it was great. The Rock then came and presented Roman Reigns with the Ulafala after the match. And then we had Rhea Ripley, who became the new Women's World Champion in what was also a very, very good match. Jey Uso picked up the victory over Drew McIntyre again in what was a very good match. And then, of course, the main event of the night was CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. And a lot of people have been complaining about the fact that CM Punk got the win, not realising that this is going to be a trilogy. And the final match, in my opinion, is going to be at WrestleMania. Don't worry, Seth will get his win. Whether he'll win the trilogy, I don't know. But the next match, he will get his win, regardless whether he's going to win the trilogy or not. So I won't worry. But yeah, it was a great match, and CM Punk did indeed get the win. and of course, obviously, we cannot forget to mention the legends that showed up. The Undertaker made a very quick appearance, giving Rhea Ripley the rub and putting her over. Also, we had John Cena, who obviously made his appearance starting his farewell tour. He basically said that he was talking about his 17th championship, breaking the record. He said it's probably not going to happen, and then he went on to talk about all the ways that he could possibly get a championship match. He said, because I can't just walk into a championship match because I've not won a match in over 2,000 days. He talks about Elimination Chamber. He talks about Money in the Bank, and then of course he talked about the upcoming PLE as well, Royal Rumble, and he said, I'm going to go on and I'm going to win the Royal Rumble, which I actually think he probably will do. So yeah, and then Triple H kicked off the show. He didn't really say a lot. He just basically said it was the first Raw on Netflix, and basically said, "Are you ready?" and stuff like that. And then The Rock came out and did a promo. It was a bit all over the place, to be honest. His promo wasn't the best that he's done. He wasn't the final boss in this promo. He was just Dwayne Johnson. He was just acting like Dwayne Johnson, the businessman, you know. And there was one other legend appearance, which I'm sure me and my co-host are going to talk a little bit about, more so than anybody else. And it's not because of how big of a name he is. It's not because we love him. It's because of the actual opposite. Me and my co-host can't stand this man. I would go as far to say that he's a scumbag. But anyway, of course we are talking about the appearance of Hulk Hogan, and I tell no lie, I was lying in bed watching Raw. As soon as his music hit, I went and had a toilet break. No word of a lie, exactly what I did. Because I just couldn't believe that he was coming out. But anyway, he did. Hulk Hogan came out, and he came out to a chorus of boos, which was so nice to hear. So nice to hear. A lot of people are saying it's political. It's not political. Is it bollocks political? If it was political, Undertaker would have got booed as well, because he's also a Trump supporter, so it can't be political. People just do not like Hulk Hogan anymore. It's as simple as that, and for many good reasons as well. So yeah, while we're on the subject of Hulk Hogan and him getting booed at Raw, I'll pass you over to my co-host and let's see what he has to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great episode of Raw, to be fair. It had a very PLE style feel. The people that should have won. Rhea got her belt back. Roman Reigns, I would say, well, we don't know if he's put that feud to bed, but at least he's reasserted himself as the tribal chief. And Punk got a win over Seth Rollins, in a feud that will definitely build up and up and up, and will come to an end probably at WrestleMania. It was good to see The Rock, cutting a Rock promo. John Cena, of course, Triple H, of course. And then we come to, the low point of the night, which was Hulk Hogan. And, obviously there are two ways you can look at it. I mean, I don't necessarily think it was political, but it is worth pointing out that obviously in a part of the world, in a part of America that voted overwhelmingly for Kamala Harris, that voted Democrat, and given that she is from California as well, I believe, and the comments that he's made about Harris, and obviously his pro-Trump stance, he wasn't going to get a good reception. That's first and foremost, and secondly, perhaps most importantly, obviously his past history. Obviously, don't need to go into depth as to that, and interestingly, it's a story that's been carried by many, many news outlets all over the world about Hulk Hogan being booed. And not just that, you could see in the live clips, people, showing him the finger, people shouting, chanting, "Fuck Hulk Hogan," and apparently it's now spooked WWE to the point that they may never bring him out again on live TV, and that's great as far as I'm concerned. That's fantastic. If it were up to me, he would never be on television ever again. But they've just signed some stupid deal with his real American beer or whatever they want to call it. Probably tastes like piss. Not
Probably
much.
is his piss.
Oh God, I dread to think. I dread to think. I'm not a massive beer drinker. I don't really drink alcohol. I do like to drink non-alcoholic beer every now and again, but I bet it tastes like piss. You know, um, he tried to win over the fans by saying stuff like they're his greatest tag team partner because they've stuck with him through thick and
He
thin.
says they've stuck with him through thick and thin as he's getting booed. It's like, yeah, they're not as if not stuck with you.
Oh, Jesus.
Uh,
Jesus Christ! But look, and people saying, "Oh, that it was unexpected that he got booed." No, it wasn't unexpected. Do people forget when he appeared last at WrestleMania and he was booed in Miami?
exactly.
When will the man realize, and WWE, I have to say, when will they both realize that he is just not liked anymore, and just do away with him?
Exactly, and
Uh,
I just
you
said,
know,
well,
no. I mean, when will they just do away with him? I mean, look. Eventually, when he does pass away, I'm not going to shed any tears. I'm sorry to say that. Well, no, I'm not sorry to say that. I'm not going to shed any tears. But of course, WWE will rightly acknowledge when he passes away. If they want to pay tribute to him, that is their decision. I'm not going to say whether people should or shouldn't boo that, but that's their prerogative. But look, yeah, I don't consider him a legend anymore. I acknowledge the fact that he is a part of WWE and wrestling history, and that can't be erased. But I don't respect him anymore. There is a list of people who I don't really respect anymore, and he is definitely top of that list. Probably joint top with Vince McMahon, and another person who we try not to mention too much here, but yeah, let's not talk. Let's not waste any more time on that man. He's a waste of space, a waste of time. He's not the future of this company. He's not the future of the business. His time has come and gone. He just is just desperate to remain relevant.
yeah,
He is just desperate to remain relevant, and the sooner he disappears into back, the better.
yeah, and I have to agree um, with everything you just said. But yeah, we'll move on now. I don't know if you can, but I don't think I can think of anything that's happened this year so far, apart from the wrestling side of things. Um, Nothing major to bring up. So let's talk about last year. Let's talk about what sort of year it was, and um, yeah, let's talk about what sort of things happened in 2024, what sort of year it was. Um, a lot of different things happened. But I think I think the first thing we should talk about is um, yeah, just quickly, last year obviously was a leap year. That was one route. Apparently, I don't remember this. I don't know if you do, but apparently we had a total solar eclipse.
We
Um,
did, yes, I
I
remember.
don't remember that. But
We
yeah,
couldn't really view it from here in the UK, but across the states, yes. One of my good friends travelled across the states. He's out in the states, but he went to like a watch party for it. but yeah, it happened. It happened.
Um, okay. So there was that. Of course, one of the big talking points of the year, something that will obviously mean a lot to you because you volunteered there. Of course, it was the Summer Olympics, the Paris Olympics, and the Paris Paralympics. Um, Great spectacle as usual. I thought Paris did a good job. Um, obviously you volunteered, so you obviously got to see things firsthand. Um, what did you think of the Olympics? Did you think that Paris did a good job?
Yeah, I think Paris did a fantastic job. It was incredibly hot, but everything ran smoothly. It was great. The action on the track and field, on the pitch, in the arenas was fantastic. Team GB did very well. Maybe not as well as previous years, but nevertheless, they still did extremely well. The host nation did very well, and it was great to be a part of something that will have a lasting memory. It was the second time I've had the privilege of volunteering at the Olympics. I did London 2012, which is now 13 years ago. Incredibly, 13 years ago, and to volunteer at one Olympics is an honor. Uh, uh, is a privilege. To do it twice is a huge honor. And it's something I would recommend to anyone, to you, Tom, to anyone listening. If you can, at the next Olympics, or whether it's the Winter Olympics, or whether it's the FIFA World Cup, or any big major sporting event, it's a great thing to be a part of. It's a great experience. It's one thing to go as a spectator, but to actually work there, in a voluntary capacity as well, behind the scenes, it's a fantastic opportunity, and I highly recommend it. I don't think I'll be going out to Los Angeles for the games, but nevertheless, it was a great experience.
Yeah. Um, oh, good. I'm glad it was a good experience. Paris, like I said, did seem to do a good job of the Olympics and the Paralympics. Like I say, a great spectacle as usual. And I look forward to the games in LA. I'm sure they'll put on a big show. Um, of course, other talking points. Of course, Euro 2024. The Euros where England did get to the final again, and again they lost. And that spelt the beginning of the end of Gareth Southgate's run as the England manager. Of course, Sir Gareth Southgate now he has been knighted. A lot of people not happy. People are saying, "Oh, he's been knighted for failure." Um, I don't. I mean, okay, yeah, we didn't win the World Cup, but ask yourselves this: when's the last time a manager, an England manager, has come in and got us to two finals on the row in terms of the Euros? When's the last time that has happened? I'd love to know because I bet
I
it's
mean,
a long, long time ago.
it hasn't happened.
Oh, there you go, there you go. It's never happened. So Gareth
Um,
Southgate did a first time thing by getting us to the Euro 2020 final and the Euro 2024 final. You know, two times on the row. I mean, that is something. Although we lost both, and it's very disappointing, it is still something to celebrate. And in my eyes, do I think he deserves a knighthood? I'm a bit like maybe, maybe not, but I'm more leaning on the side of yes, he does. Um, but yeah, people are just thinking about it all in the wrong way, saying that he's being knighted for failure. That's not the reason he's been knighted. He's been knighted because he's done something no England manager has ever done before. And I don't get the hate for it, to be honest. But yeah, we got to the final of Euro 2024, and we did lose to Spain. And I was out in one of my local pubs watching the final. It was rammed, and you know what? I loved the fact that even though even though most of the year people are divided, more so these days than ever because people get offended so easily, football always unites people. It always does. And I went to watch the final. It was a great experience. It's the first time I've ever been to a pub to watch a final of a major tournament. I've been to many pubs to watch many different games, but never a final. It was such a good atmosphere. It was packed. Everybody was just like everybody was united. Everybody was having a laugh with each other. Everybody celebrated together when the goals went in. Obviously not. Obviously we all swore at the TV together when the goals went in for Spain. But yeah, it was such a good experience and a good atmosphere, and I did enjoy it. Apart from the fact that we lost. Um, yeah, it was just very unfortunate. Hopefully, when the next Euros comes along, or the next tournament, should I say, which will be the World Cup. Hopefully, Tuchel will do something for us, and hopefully we can actually win something. Your thoughts on the World Cup? Oh no, Euros. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's whether about the knighthood, I do think it is deserved. I think he has achieved more than any other England manager has before him, with the exception of Alf Ramsey. Lest we forget, he took us to a World Cup semi-final, a World Cup quarter-final. We got to the semi-finals of the UEFA Nations League, and twice to the Euro final. But I think ultimately the blemish on his record will be that we lost both those finals. One we should have really won, which was Euro 2020, and ultimately his tactics, which weren't the best. I think that needs to be pointed out. Um, but I think he did a good job, if we recall, given the circumstances under which he got the job as well. And he did very, very well at a time when, certainly, going into the 2018 World Cup, nobody was expecting much from the England team. He put the England team back amongst the big contenders again. And I think, Gareth Southgate needs to be saluted for that. Um, you know, I think when we look back on his time as England manager, we will say it was a job well done. It's just a shame that with the players that he had, he wasn't able to win a major tournament when clearly they were more than capable of winning a major tournament. And you know, obviously with Thomas Tuchel, we have got as much as he has been a nemesis for Manchester City in the past, we have got who I think is one of the best managers in world football. Um, he has the team at his disposal. He has the resources at his disposal. Do I think the expectation is that he's going to win the World Cup? I think that's what we want. Now, obviously, whether or not that happens in reality, there are so many other factors at play here. But I think England are in a very good position. I think ultimately the team to beat is Spain. And that's why they won the Euros. They were far and away the best team at the Euros. If anything, I think England were extremely lucky to get to the final when you consider we were seconds away from being eliminated by Slovakia. We rode our luck, really, and our luck just ran out in the final. I've forgotten what I was going to say. Yeah, Spain are going to be the big contenders. I think Argentina will be up there. Can't rule out France. Can't rule out Portugal. Even though they're not doing well of late, you can never rule out Germany or Brazil. I think Belgium, their sort of golden generation is now kind of fading away. But, you always put them amongst dark horses. Can never rule out a team like the Netherlands either. Um, again, another dark horse. Maybe Uruguay as an outside dark horse. And I'm just trying to think of other strong teams. I think Croatia, they've done well for two World Cups on the bounce. Maybe this time they'll start to fade away a little bit. I think if Italy qualify, of course, can never rule out Italy. Um, but yeah, it'll be an interesting World Cup, an expanded World Cup for the first time hosted across three nations. We'll see. We'll see. I think England have a great chance to win the World Cup finally. Um, I know Tuchel's contract only runs until the World Cup. If England do well and win the thing, I think he should stay on. To try and win the Euros on home soil. Lest we forget, it's going to be hosted on home soil, and also, if he did win the World Cup, go and defend it. Yeah, I think Gareth Southgate, when we look back on his managerial career with England, he left the England team in a better place than in which he found it. And I think we should be grateful for the job that he did. It was just a case of that his time had come to an end. And, look, he did a great job in the circumstances. And, he restored a lot of credibility in the England team that it had lost, I would say, post 2006, after the 2006 World Cup. We didn't even qualify for the Euros in 2008. We were poor at the 2010 World Cup. We were poor at the 20. We got to the quarterfinals Euro 2012 with Roy Hodgson. We then flopped at flopped at the 2014 World Cup. We then lost to Iceland at Euro 2016. We went through a period of over those 10 years of being down in the dumps, really. But yeah, congratulations to Sir Gareth Southgate. He did a great job with the England team. We're yet to see what he's going to do next in terms of a managerial career, or indeed if that is to be it, and he's going to take a more technical role. But another missed opportunity for England. Obviously, we lost to the team who were clearly far and away the best team at the Euros and probably the best team at the moment in world football, alongside Argentina. There's no shame in that. But frustratingly, that's 2 Euros on the bounce. We got to the final and lost, and obviously the next one's going to be the final's going to be at Wembley. So, can we bring it home? Can we bring it home? But before that, obviously we've got World Cup qualification to go through. I can't remember off the top of my head which teams England got, but it was a reasonable group. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what the Tuchel era brings.
Yes, me too. Hello, Genetic ACGT. Hope you're doing okay. Yeah, so we had the World Cup this year as well. I mean, there's been so much that's happened in 2024. We're not going to go over all. We're just going to go over the big events that happened in 2024. Next thing.
Well, there's a couple of things I wanted to mention.
Okay, go on.
And obviously, I don't know if you were going to mention them anyway, but and I'm sure one of these will interest our friend Genetic ACGT as well. Well, I don't wish to make the podcast, the stream political, but we can't overlook the fact that a couple of significant political events happened last year on both sides of the Atlantic. And, firstly, in the UK, back in July, an earlier general election was called. And after 14 years out, the Labour Party returned to power after 14 years. with Sir Keir Starmer becoming Prime Minister. And, look, I've made no secret of my political alignment. Obviously, whatever your politics, you're almost welcome here. This is not me to say that I'm right, you're wrong, or vice versa, or anything like that. But yeah, I was happy with that result. In London, where I live, as well as spending time in Manchester. Um, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, won an unprecedented third term, a historic third term, and also Andy Burnham also won another term as the Mayor of Greater Manchester, which obviously is my hometown and where obviously our host Tom is based as well, Greater Manchester. Um, but for every positive, there is sadly a negative, and I think I speak on behalf of my host and as well as others like our friend Genetic ACGT that the result across the Atlantic wasn't so great. Now, of course, ultimately, at the end of the day, I respect the democratic process. And if that is the choice that the people of the United States of America have made, that is the choice that they made. But needless to say, I am not a fan of Donald Trump or his politics. You only need to look at the stuff that he's coming out with in the last couple of days. Crazy stuff where he's suggesting that Canada should be absorbed into the United States and become the 51st state of America. And
Jesus.
he's not ruling out using military force to seize Greenland, which is part of Denmark, a NATO state and a United States ally, or renaming the Panama Canal, which belongs to the state of Panama, the country of Panama, renaming it the United States Canal or the American Canal or whatever he wants to call it, and again seizing that by military force. And even suggesting the same with Canada. Now, do I think he will do that in reality? Absolutely not. It would undoubtedly trigger a third world war doing something like that, and I would like to think that there are enough sane people in politics in the United States on both sides of the house and within that military as well, who would turn around and defy, an order to basically invade a United States ally. It's not going to happen. I don't want to say I don't think he's that stupid. I mean, yes, I do think he's that stupid, but I don't think he would be totally insane that he would do something like that. But he knows would cause serious damage on so many levels, not just to his country, but for the world. But ultimately, this is the man that is going to be leading the United States of America in just over 11 days. And essentially become the leader of the free world, as it were. And yeah, it's not great times. It's not great times. And you look at everything else that's happening politically around the world, whether it's the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, the ongoing Russian invasion in Ukraine, what's happening in the Middle East, in Israel and Palestine. Um, it's turbulent and sad times for the world, and even politically, this year starting off, we've had Justin Trudeau resign as the Prime Minister of Canada. Obviously, towards the end of last year, France went into a bit of political turmoil. With the rise of the far right in France and across the world, even here in the UK as well, you've got far right commentators on the rise. You've had Elon Musk making outrageous comments about the British government and singling out MPs, making all sorts of accusations, referring to, someone like Tommy Robinson. So for those who are listening who don't know about Tommy Robinson, he is a far right activist who is currently in prison. He's been convicted multiple times of harassment and all sorts of things. Basically, he is and I have no qualms about saying this on the stream. He is a racist, a fascist, a homophobe. Um, I don't know about homophobe, but he's definitely a racist and a fascist and Islamophobe. And Elon Musk refers to him as a political prisoner and a hero. And, this is the state of the world at the moment. You've got people involved in politics, people close to the office of the President of the United States of America who are making comments like that about criminals. What has become of the world? And it is turbulent times. It is turbulent times. And, you know, thank God we have things like football and wrestling to distract us from what's going on in the real world. But 2025 is going to be a turbulent year politically and socially. And, President Trump, I refer to him as President Trump not because I respect him as a man. I respect, as I've said to my friend Genetic ACGT in the past, even if I was to meet the man in person, I would still address him as President Trump or Mr. President. I respect the office of the President of the United States. I respect the title of the President of the United States just as I respect, the title of King or Queen or Prime Minister, even if I don't necessarily respect the individual holding that title for whatever reason. But, I'm sorry to put us all on a downer. It is something we should all be concerned about when, you have somebody who is in a position of power and a position of authority who can readily say things like, that he's going to invade another country and take it by force, even if he's saying it just to rile up his supporters or it just as a joke. It's just not funny. But then again, if you've got the likes of Hulk Hogan supporting this man by saying that he was going to body slam Kamala Harris, well, that's all you need to know about the man. But enough about the political stuff, unless you want to comment on any of those events that happened in the UK and the US.
Well, I actually was going to mention the UK election and the US election. Of course, how can we talk about the key events of 2024 and not talk about probably the biggest events of 2024? So yeah, I was going to mention them. I don't really have a lot to say. I think I said enough in the election stream. I think I said enough. I think people know how I feel about Trump. I don't think I really need to go into it anymore. I just will read these few comments out by Genetic, and then you can continue. He says about the election in the US, it could have been better to say the least. He said Trump also wants to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Okay. Trump claims to have a good relationship with the blacks, but he didn't rent out Trump apartments to black people. Wow. I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that. I just don't even know what to say. But I'll let you continue.
Yeah, I mean, from a political perspective, that's all I have to say on that. I think we will see in the next few days, in the coming weeks, what a Trump presidency part 2 is going to hold for the world. Doesn't look very positive at the moment. Obviously, I don't want to get technical and talking about economics and everything, but obviously he has threatened to ramp up tariffs on imports, and that are going to affect economies around the world as part of his, America First policy. And his, obsession with trying to reassert American dominance in the face of, an increasingly powerful China. And, he's prepared to go to war economically to get what he wants. And, we will have to wait and see what happens there. I must also mention, towards the end of last year, sadly, former U.S. president and an individual I've had the privilege and the honor of meeting and working with in the past, and someone who I have a lot of time and respect for, and I'm sure Genetic ACGT will comment as well. President Jimmy Carter, who died at the age of 100. He lived incredibly to the age of 100. Lost his wife last year. He was suffering from cancer, and he was undergoing palliative care. But just for a brief point of history, he only served one term as a president, but there were a lot of turbulence during his time as president as well, and the story of you know being someone who was basically a peanut farmer who rose to the office of president is a great story, and arguably he won more accolades and respect after his time in office, and obviously that culminated, I think, in 2002 with him winning the Nobel Peace Prize. And I myself was very privileged to have met Jimmy Carter and heard him speak during my time at university. I also have a couple of possessions that I now treasure very dearly: a signed photograph from President Carter, a signed copy of his Nobel Prize lecture. So that's a speech that he gave when he received his Nobel Peace Prize, and a hand signed letter from him as well. And those are things that I will treasure very dearly for the rest of my life. My condolences to the Carter family, his friends, colleagues, and to all his supporters and admirers around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't even know about that. I didn't even know Jimmy Carter had passed away. I didn't even know he was 100. I apologise for being a bit ignorant in that way. I should have known. I apologise. I mean no offence by not knowing. But yeah, I don't know a lot about the man. I know obviously he was a former U.S. president. So it's about as much as I know about him, to be honest. But I've heard good things about him. I've heard people say good things about him. I mean, Genetics says here, rest in peace, Jimmy Carter. From what I know of you, you weren't an overly effective president, but you were a good man.
Yeah, and I think that sums him up very accurately. I think he was a one-term president, and he didn't come out of it with a lot of glory. Obviously, I'm not going to go in depth into that. We're not going to make this a history lesson. But I think it's fair to say he won a lot of credibility and respect in his time out of office, particularly in his charity work, both in the States and around the world. And, you just need to look at the outpouring of tributes to the man following his passing. I signed the online book of condolence. I also sent a personal message to the Carter Center, whom I've had the pleasure of working with in the past, and they acknowledged my my message, which was a huge honor. And it's always sad when someone passes away, no matter how old or young they are. It's the end of a life, but certainly not the end of a legacy. And his memory and his legacy will live on through the work of the Carter Center and his supporters. And as I said earlier, at a time when the world is undergoing a bit of turbulence politically, it's always good to remember the people who did good in the world and carry on their legacy in the face of adversity. And it's something we can all learn from, regardless of our background.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, rest in peace, Jimmy Carter. Is that everything that you wanted to mention? Can I move on to the last few things I want to mention?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the last couple of things I wanted to mention, obviously, one of them was going to be the US election, but that's now gone. That's already been mentioned. One of the things I wanted to mention was, of course, in 2024, sort of the late part of 2024, the last couple of months of 2024, I believe the end of October, if I remember rightly, we sadly lost Liam Payne. If you've been living under a rock and you don't know who Liam Payne is, he was a former member of British British boy band One Direction. Of course, massive worldwide, had a lot of success, ended up going their own ways, ended up most of them having having solo success. Um, and unfortunately, he did pass away. We still don't know 100% what happened, whether he jumped, whether he was pushed, whether he fell accidentally. We don't know, and we're not going to speculate. However, he did pass away. It's very, very sad. He was 30, 31, 32. I think he's very, very similar in age to me. It's too young. It's too young to pass away. It's no age. He had such a good life ahead of him. If he hadn't passed away, he would have continued to make music. He would have continued to be successful. Of course, he has a young son, Bear, which obviously he's now going to have to grow up without a dad, which is devastating for Bear. And of course, my condolences go to him. But yeah, it was just a very sad event. I will say that it did shake me up for a good 2 weeks after I found out, because one, because he was so young, and two, because he was so near in age to me, and I just thought, like, it just sort of spooked. It sort not spooked me, but it just sort of shook me up because of how similar of age he was to me. But yeah, it was just incredibly sad. Of course, his former One Direction boy, his former One Direction bandmates, of course, absolutely devastated, as you would imagine. But he looked like he had a good send off. All his former bandmates were there. His son, his ex girlfriend Cheryl, amongst a lot of other people. He had a good turnout, and it is sad that he's no longer with us. I've never really been a big One Direction fan, never really been a big fan of his solo music, but it doesn't mean that I want him to die or want him to pass away, or that I didn't like him as a person, because I did. But yeah, very, very sad to lose such a big star at such a young age. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredibly sad about Liam Payne. And look, I was not a fan of One Direction. I did see them perform live at the closing ceremony of the 2012 Olympics. I can't say I was a fan of One Direction's music or Liam Payne's music, but it was just incredibly sad. The circumstances of his death, the fact that he was so young, leaving behind a young child as well. Just to add, the UK coroner did really release today a statement confirming the cause of death as what's called polytrauma. So that's like multiple injuries, or to be more precise, a term for multiple traumatic injuries which have been sustained to a person's body and organs. So that's related to him, falling off the balcony. Obviously, that you can read that news story in different outlets. Yeah, it's just incredibly sad, the circumstances of his death. And I think it affected a lot of people, even people who were not fans of his music or whatnot. To just hear the story of what happened. And obviously it's something that is going to be an ongoing investigation. I believe people have been arrested in Argentina over it. I'm not going to go in depth about the cause of death or the results of the post-mortem examination. I think if people want to look that up, they can look it up. There were other significant deaths during last year. Um, I think the one that really stood out for me as well was the death of Dame Maggie Smith. Uh, you know, uh, an incredible actress, Oscar-winning actress as well, and you know, to younger uh, to younger audiences will be most remembered for the Harry Potter series. Portraying Professor McGonagall in the Harry Potter series. She had a lot of memorable roles over the years, including some of my personal favourites: Sister Act, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, Hook, amongst others. Um, yeah, a giant of the British film industry, and very much sadly missed.
Um, yeah, I mean, uh,
Oh no, and of course one more that I have to mention: James Earl Jones. The voice of Mufasa, the voice of Darth Vader, um, the man who did the introduction to CNN. The This Is CNN. Um, I recently saw the new Mufasa movie, and they paid tribute to him at the beginning of the movie. A giant of another giant as the film industry. Sadly, no longer with us.
yeah, absolutely. Just read out a few comments here from Genetic. He says, I cannot say that I've ever listened to One Direction, but it sadly in pain died. My condolences to his family, absolutely. And he says, what makes it sadder? I think I recall hearing that they found alcohol in his system. I wonder if something was going on in his life. I mean, yeah, there was obvious stuff going on in his life. He very openly admitted that he suffered with depression on a quite regularly. It was just very very sad. But we don't know fully what happened. We don't know whether he jumped. We don't know whether he accidentally fell or whatever happened. So we're not going to speculate. But it's still very sad. But yeah, Dame Maggie Smith, James Earl Jones. I mean, of course, Dame Maggie Smith. I've seen her in lots of different things, but I'd say my favourite character of hers is definitely Minerva McGonagall, Professor McGonagall from the Harry Potter series. I absolutely adore the Harry Potter series. I watched them again and again and again quite regularly. I just loved them, and she was one of my favourite characters in it. She just portrayed McGonagall so well, and it's one of them characters that you just can't imagine anybody else portraying. That's how well she did it, because you just can't imagine anybody else would be able to portray it as good as she did. Um, you know, it was very sad when I found out about that. I was always dreading that day. We already lost a fair few people from the Harry Potter world, and Dame Maggie Smith was pretty much, I think, maybe the oldest person that was left. And obviously, we knew it was going to come at some point one day, but I wasn't ready for it to happen as soon as it did, to be honest. Um, but yeah,
There's
very.
Yeah, there's a few others I want to mention as well, very quickly. Carl Weathers, who many will know, famous for the Predator series, but also most famously as Apollo Creed in the Rocky series, sadly passed away. Um, Former Deputy Prime Minister of the UK, John Prescott. Franz Beckenbauer, World Cup winning player and World Cup winning coach with Germany. Regarded as one of the greatest German footballers, one of the greatest players of all time. Who else did we lose? Sven Goran Eriksson, former England and Manchester City manager, and won the Scudetto with Lazio. In fact, it's the only occasion where they won the Serie A title, I believe, or the last time they won it. And he won the European Cup Winners' Cup as well with them. There's a couple of other people I want to mention. If you just bear with me a moment whilst I'm just scrolling. And again, if anyone wants to mention particular individuals in the chat as well, that would be great as well. Bernard Hill, famous for playing the King of Rohan in the Lord of the Rings movies and the captain in Titanic, sadly passed away. Dave Myers of the Harry Bikers duo, sadly passed away as well. Very iconic for his unconventional look and riding around on his motorbike around the world. Cooking up great dishes. Very sad. Very sad news about his passing. An actor that I was particularly a fan of, Donald Sutherland, father of Kiefer Sutherland, won an honorary Academy Award. He also passed away. And Shelley Duvall, whom many might remember not only as playing the role of Olive Oil in the Popeye movie, but also she was the terror-stricken wife to Jack Nicholson in The Shining. One of the all-time great horror movies. There's nobody else really that stands out. If there's anyone that I've missed, forgive me. But yes, is there anyone else you wanted to mention, Tom, or anyone else?
I just wanted to finish on Maggie Smith a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, an absolute British national treasure. Absolutely. The film industry will not be the same without her. That's how big of an impact she had on the film industry. And quickly talking about James Earl Jones. Very, very sad. I'm a big Star Wars fan, big Lion King fan. Lion King was a movie I watched many, many times growing up. It was one of my favourite films as a kid. I had it on. I had it on so much. I mean, my mum would say that I literally had it on repeat. I loved it that much. Yeah, and he had such an iconic voice, James Earl Jones, and it's very, very sad that he's no longer with us. But he will always be remembered for what he's done, and again, he's also an icon in the film industry, and again, the film industry will not be the same without him in it. What were you going to say?
Yes, there's one big name two big names I forgot to mention. There was rugby league player Rob Burrows, who bravely fought and lost his battle with motor neurone disease. Those of you might know, Rob Burrows, former Leeds Rhino Great Britain rugby player. He spent his remaining time campaigning for the disease, spreading awareness and raising funds for research into the disease. He sadly lost his battle with motor neurone disease. And also Quincy Jones, legendary musician and producer, works with the likes of Ray Charles, Michael Jackson, amongst others, a giant of the music industry, sadly passed away. RIP to all those that we mentioned and those that we haven't mentioned. They've left lasting impacts on the world. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about Sven-Goran Eriksson. I know we did talk a lot about him last year.
I feel like when he did pass away, and we talked about it, I feel like I said quite a lot, but I'll always respect the man for what he did for England. I will always hate the fact that he was Manchester City manager.
Well, here's the thing. Similarly to what I said about Gareth Southgate, the success of a manager isn't always measured by the trophies that they win, but where they leave, the position that they leave the team in. And I
Yeah.
genuinely believe that with Sven-Goran Eriksson and Gareth Southgate, they both left the England team in a better position than
Yeah.
which they found it.
Yeah. They
And
absolutely
and
did.
and the same with Manchester City as well. Obviously, yes, the money came in and everything, but what he did in that one season, he did restore a lot of credibility back into the Manchester City side. Doing that
Yeah.
double over United for the first time in many, many
Yeah. We don't
years.
need to mention that.
5-1 against Germany. And I think, his time as England manager, regardless, forget about what happened off the pitch. But on the pitch, I think it was defined by, unluckiness. We were unlucky against Brazil, with that Ronaldinho goal. We were unlucky against Portugal in the Euros when we clearly scored a legit goal that would have been given in the VAR days. And then that semi-final loss to Portugal at the 2006 World Cup. And I think, he transformed manager, the England job. And I think, there was a lot of resistance to him initially, as a foreigner taking the England job. I've never been one of those people that, it has to be an Englishman. I think it's a outdated and frankly, I hate to say this, frankly, a xenophobic way of thinking. I think we just have to accept that sometimes there might be better people for the job who may not be English.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, it's whoever the best man or the best woman is for the job. It shouldn't matter where they come from. We wouldn't talk like that in the real world.
No.
So I don't see why we should talk like that in football. And we've had so many English managers, and none of them really even came close.
No.
But yeah, R.I.P. to Sven-Goran Eriksson
Yeah.
and Franz Beckenbauer as well. Obviously his playing days was a bit before my time, but a legendary player, and obviously he won the 1990 World Cup with Germany. Obviously, overcame us in the semi-final, but certainly someone who was very well respected around the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have much else to say about Sven-Goran Eriksson, legend of the football world. We both signed his book of condolence at the what was it, the National Football Museum in
The National
Manchester.
Football League, yeah.
It was an honour to do so, absolute honour, and yeah, rest in peace, Sven. But moving on from death, I've only got one more thing really to talk about, and then we will say goodbye. And we don't really need to say, we don't really need to talk about it in length because, to be honest, I think talking about it in length would get quite boring. But I think it has to be mentioned when it comes to talking about key moments of 2024. And we mentioned him earlier, and he's of course the new president of the United States. Donald Trump's trial earlier this year. He was. Yes, believe it or not, he was convicted, even though he is the I'm about to say prime minister, even though he is the president now. Yes, he was indeed convicted, but he is still the president. He was charged with 34 counts of falsification of business records in the first degree. He pleaded not guilty, but he was convicted. But yeah, he was still allowed to run for president, and he now is the new president. So the United States president is a criminal. But anyway, yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about it. All I will say about it before I pass it over to my co-host, if he has anything to say about it, is that it's just doesn't surprise me that Trump has done these things. I think he's done a lot more than what they actually know as well. But yeah, I just think that the fact that he was convicted of these 34 counts of falsification, which Hulk Hogan says isn't true, even though he's literally being convicted of them, But brother knows best.
Yeah, brother knows best.
You know, and the fact that he was not only was he convicted, but he was then still allowed to run for president. Beyond me, what the rules are when it comes to U.S. politics, I honestly don't even know what else to say about it. I'll pass it over to my co-host.
Sure, sure. No, I mean, I've got nothing really further to add to that. I mean, he's a convicted felon who is now president of the United States again, and it is beyond me, you know, how that is allowed to even happen. That's, no offense to our American friends tuning in. Obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of American law, uh, but I just think the fact that he is a convicted criminal and yet he won the election by, you could say, really a landslide is just very, very, very disturbing.
Hmm.
But I did want us to end on some more positive notes because there's a couple of things that I feel you haven't mentioned we should have done. We should go back to the sporting and wrestling points. I want to interject and say, you know, notwithstanding the poor form that they've been in recently, the 2023-2024 season was another vintage one for Manchester City. For the first time of any football team in English football, in the top league, we did, well, obviously, yeah, it would only be in the top league. We won 4 Premier League titles in a row. And it's extremely unlikely they're going to win a fifth in a row, given their poor form in recent months. But nevertheless, that is an achievement that no other team is probably going to come close to achieving for a very long time. And they also ended the season, lifting the UEFA Super Cup as well. Well, that was earlier in the season, and becoming Club World Cup champions for the very first time in their history. And for me, as a Manchester City fan, that was a particularly proud moment. I know, Tom, you're a United fan. You hate praising City, but for me, as a Man City fan, it felt as though the club had achieved what they'd set out to achieve, and their journey had come full circle, and now starts a new journey. Of course, we have the Club World Cup revamped edition, expanded edition to look forward to this coming summer. That's going to be held in the States, and yeah, I don't know if you wanted to mention any other sporting moments. We had Tyson versus Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk twice. Twice Tyson Fury was on the losing side. I don't think there's any doubt that Usyk wasn't the rightful winner. I think he was. He was the rightful winner of both. I'm trying to think of other significant moments in sport this year, in 2024. Of course, from a tennis perspective, if any of you follow tennis even casually, both Rafael Nadal and Andy Murray, Sir Andy Murray, hung up their rackets. Um, you know, Andy Murray, probably Britain's greatest ever tennis player in the modern era, um, beset with injuries, but won Wimbledon twice, won the US Open, won Olympic gold, I think twice, or was it once? But he won Olympic gold as well. At London 2012, memorably as well, won Olympic gold. Uh, got to the final of the Australian and the French Open, I think, but lost on both occasions. Um, yeah, there was that, and got to watch WWE live in the UK. I didn't go to the AEW event, uh, but I'm sure, Tom, you'll want to wrap up with maybe just reflecting on some of the highlights from WWE last year.
Um, of course, one of the highlights of last year, Cody finished his story.
Indeed.
A big highlight. He's still the champion to this day. Um, I think he's been a very good champion. A lot of people would disagree with that and say that he's been a bad champion, but I disagree. I think he's been a good champion. I think a lot of his matches he has been great, and I I'm curious at how much longer he will hold the championship. My prediction is he will only hold it to WrestleMania, but we will see. Other significant wrestling moments of 2024. Of course, Cody again winning the Rumbles 2 years in a row. Something that's not been done very often, only by a few people in history. Um, so there's two moments there for Cody. Of course, another significant moment: John Cena announcing his retirement tour for 2025. A very, very significant moment there. I'm trying to think of some other significant moments. Of course,
Yeah, I mean,
Gunther winning the World Championship for the first time. Uh, um,
yeah,
uh,
we can
yeah,
ban that guy there.
thank you. But yeah, no, I can't really think of any more. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yes, Cody finishing his story was significant, as was the end of Roman's reign, with a very significant reign as well. You know, more than 1,000 days. Gunther finally getting his hands on the championship as well. Cody becoming the first Crown Jewel champion. Liv Morgan as well. Bailey winning the title against Io. I think the ending to WrestleMania was great as well, seeing all the good guys come out celebrating with Cody. It was a great way to mark, 40 years, 40th edition of WrestleMania. Having The Rock come back the way that he did, um, as well, and being involved in that was great. Um, Sting, Sting retiring as well after such a lengthy career. AEW doesn't do a lot right these days, but I feel that they gave Sting the appropriate send off that he deserved. And as we, but I'm sure you agree with me, Tom.
Yeah,
Sting is a legend, a
yeah,
certifiable legend. I would not if people wanted to name him as the greatest wrestler of all time. It's not something I would dispute. You could argue that there might be others, but Sting legitimately is. Yeah, he is legitimately one of the top five. Definitely in the top 10, and you could say he's even in the top five of all time. Yes. Sting retired. I was also very pleased to see Goldberg somehow making amends with the WWE and returning to, WWE TV, in the segment with Gunther. Goldberg has announced that he's having his retirement match in 2025 and that it is going to be against Gunther. So we will wait and see if, when, and where that's going to happen. I don't suspect it's going to happen at WrestleMania, although I could be wrong. But it will happen at some point. Possibly if they do a next PLE in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where Goldberg is from. So yeah, we will see. I think I'm right in saying Hikaru Shida won the women's title for a third time again this year. Or was that in 2023? I can't remember, but she hasn't been too active in AEW. Hikaru Shida being my fave. I was disappointed to see Asuka get injured. Hope she'll come back soon. Um, yeah, Charlotte Flair as well. We hope she'll come back soon as well from her injury. Um, but yeah, I mean, before we go, what are you looking forward to in 2025 and other highlights? There was one highlight I was going to mention yesterday from NXT. Julia, one of my new faves, has become the NXT Women's Champion. She's definitely a wrestler that I'm a very big fan of, and lots of people are big fans of. And I expect great things from her. And no doubt, sooner or later, she will be on the main roster, and no doubt she will probably make a Royal Rumble appearance as well. So let's see where we go with that. But what are you looking forward to in 2025, Tom? What are your predictions?
2025.
So whether it's in wrestling, whether it's in football, whether it's political.
Well, of course, we're going to have a. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the women's football. There'll be a women's. What is it? Is it World Cup or Euros this year?
It's the Euros.
Yes, we're going to have the women's Euros, which, of course, England will hopefully win. They're a very good team, England, in the women. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. In terms of wrestling, I'm looking forward to WrestleMania, of course. Um, I'm looking forward to seeing what the John Cena retirement tour has in store for us. Um, yeah. Um, I'm looking forward to the. Why can't I think of what it's called? The Super Bowl. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl. I don't know exactly what the date is for that, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to be.
I think it's the 10th of February, or no, Sunday the 9th of February, I think.
Right. Okay. Well, hopefully I'll be live for that. But I'm looking forward to that. I'm not a massive American football fan, but I absolutely love watching the Super Bowl every single year. I've watched it for the past 3 years, I think, and I think I'm finally starting to get the rules to a point.
Well, maybe if maybe we'll go to a watch party or something.
Potentially, yeah, maybe.
Um,
But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to that. That should be good. But yeah, I mean, hopefully many things are gonna happen this year. I mean, from a personal standpoint, I'm looking forward to going to Orlando in May. That will be good. I'm also looking forward to seeing Oasis later on in the year as well.
don't rub it in.
Hopefully, I'm hoping to see Coldplay as well later on in the year if I can get tickets, but I haven't got tickets for that yet. I'm also going to a festival while I'm in America, and I'll be seeing Green Day and Linkin Park live. Looking forward to that.
Amazing.
Green Day especially. I've always loved Green Day. I've always wanted to see them live because I've seen so many videos online of them live, and they are amazing. So I'm really excited for that. So yeah, I mean that's just me from a personal standpoint, but I think there we will wrap it up. Thank you everybody who has joined us. Genetic ACGT, of course. Thank you for joining us as well. I've missed a few of his comments, so I'm just going to go back and just read a few things he said. Genetic says, I'm sure Trump's done a lot of shady things. He's also said, in America, you don't really need to have a clean record. In fact, the candidate for the Socialist Party ran for president from behind bars. His crime? Advocating against US involvement in World War One. He also said, note, not defending Trump's actions, just giving a historical example. He says, I'm looking forward to the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. Cross fingers. Also WrestleMania. Yeah. So,
I mean, I thought I could rattle off a few of my points for 2025 quickly.
Go
on. In terms of predictions from a sporting perspective, obviously I hope England will win the Women's Euros. I hope Man City will win the Club World Cup in the summer. If they can pick up their form and get a good winning run together, maybe finish in the Champions League positions, and maybe go further in the FA Cup and the Champions League this year. We shall see. In terms of WrestleMania, and this year's wrestling, I'm looking forward to seeing what John Cena's final run entails. I would like to see him win title number 17. I would personally like to see Rock v Cena Part 3 at some point, and I hope that does happen. Whether that's at WrestleMania or indeed if that might be his final match. I hope to see Asuka come back from injury. I want to see Io Sky do well again. I want to see AEW improve, but we keep saying it seems like we keep saying that every year. from a personal perspective, I want to try and get Oasis tickets and Coldplay tickets myself. I hope to go. I'm sure Tom will want to come along with me as well to watch Raw and SmackDown when it comes to the UK
Absolutely.
in the spring. There's a couple of wrestling cons that I want to go to meet some famous wrestlers and get some more signed belts for my collection. I'm trying to think. There's AEW Forbidden Door, which depending on when it's happening, I might go along to and see that. And personally, just getting on with my life, with my work. Recently started a law course, so hopefully I'm on the path to training to be a lawyer. So one day I'll be Professor Wigglytuff, PhD, attorney of law, as it were. So
Yes.
we shall see. But despite the doom and gloom and the nervousness and anxiety of what might be happening in the world, there is a lot to look forward to personally, and in general. Um, I always find even numbered years seem to be better than the odd numbered years. I don't know. That sounds a bit weird, but yeah.
um,
Yeah.
go on. Sorry.
And thank you, Genetic ACGT, for your message.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to look forward to
Yeah.
in the new year. Just one quick highlight that we forgot to mention. Myself and Tom, we had the privilege of attending the MTV EMA Awards that were held for the very
Oh,
first time in
absolutely. Yeah.
Manchester. I have to admit, there were a lot of acts that I wasn't fully aware of, and those that I was aware of, I can't really say that their performances blew me away. That's not to disrespect them. You know, and I felt the main show itself was a bit shorter than I expected it to be, but
Mm.
it is what it is. But nevertheless, it was an interesting spectacle, and it's something I would do again should the EMAs ever come back to the UK.
Yeah.
But that's all I have to say really about the review of 2024. Looking forward to 2025. Uh, you know, uh, yeah, and I'll hand it back to you, Tom.
Well, yeah, I think that's where we'll wrap it up. Of course, if you've got any additional things you want to say about your highlights of 2024, what you're looking forward to in 2025, um, on YouTube, put it in the comments below. You won't be able to do that on Twitch, but you can do it on YouTube, so make sure you do. And one more thing about YouTube before I go. Of course, I said before that I'm going to do a 500 subscriber celebration stream. That is still going to go ahead. I've now reached 515 subscribers on YouTube, which I'm very, very grateful for. Hopefully that number continues to grow. But there will be a celebration stream coming at some point. I'm very, very busy with work. I'm also going to be away for a week and a half, starting halfway through the week next week, going to my mum's. So I won't be able to obviously do it then.
And when are you heading to Orlando?
That's it. That I'm heading to Orlando on May 13th.
May 13th.
Yes. For 2 weeks.
Very nice.
But yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed the stream. I assure you that the next episode of What's the News will not be too long, too. Sorry, I can't speak. The next episode of What's the News will not be too far in the future. Like I said, I am going to be away, so it will probably
Sorry.
be.
I forgot to add one more really important piece of information to share with everybody.
Well,
Another highlight of 2024.
what?
I got to go back. I went back to Disneyland after 22 years.
Yeah, and you didn't really enjoy it, did you?
It was okay. No, actually, it wasn't 22 years. It was after 29 years.
Wow.
29 years. It was enjoyable. There were,
Yeah,
not to go in depth. There are other things on my mind which kind of affected my enjoyment on the day, but you know, um,
um,
it was a nice experience, and Disneyland Paris, I will visit again
yeah,
in the very near future. I may be going out to Paris for the PSG Man City game. So maybe I might go visit Mickey and friends,
yeah.
but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. But yeah, like I say, the 500 subscriber celebration stream will come up probably next month. The next episode of What's the News will probably be at the start of next month as well. There'll also be hopefully a Super Bowl stream as long as I'm not working the next day. I'll try to I'll try to get it off. I mean, if it's on a Sunday, I'm usually off Mondays, so it should be okay. But
Always on the Sunday.
so yeah, well, I should be okay then. But yeah, anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the stream, and we'll see you again very soon. Yep. So that's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Bye bye.
We off the air.
Yep. Oh God, no. It is the 20th anniversary of when Chris Benoit lost his mind.